Episode 327 of the Two Thick Pod, your home for all things sports, cards, and levity. I am checked out. I fly to Vegas in the morning, so quite frankly, let's just go ahead and close it up and get the hell up out of here. It's good seeing you all. I will talk to you later.
welcome, Two Thick fam. We are welcome with Dennis. I actually didn't go, so Dennis is going to probably give me some crap. But the Reckless family, Courtney and Jeremy, went to the card show on Avery's Shoebox card show this weekend. Plenty of deals. I saw some content, and there seemed to be a lot of foot traffic. So I'm kind of excited to hear from you guys.
Packed, Manny. Absolutely packed. The flow of traffic was good. Cash was flying. Cards from, quarter bins up till five-figure cards. And a lot of TCG, man. That spot is starting to blow up with TCG, whether it's Dragon Ball or Pokemon and some of like Yu-Gi-Oh. There must be a good promoter behind this show, bringing in this nice eclectic mix.
Decent one, right?
Handsome. I know that much for sure.
Manny doesn't go to card shows anymore. That's not his thing. He's too good for card shows.
I have sick kids. I sent you a message of like what I was dealing with like 5 minutes ago. It's bad. Did you not get it?
I have twice as many children who project 10 times more bodily fluids.
I mean, the older ones probably don't as much.
Well, then they start drinking, and then you.
I was gonna say soon they're gonna be drinking, and it's gonna be different type of sickness.
So, Dennis, your show. You take a lot of pride putting it in. The one thing that I told you before we dipped out on Saturday, after spending, Courtney and myself stayed behind to help clean up. Manny, of course, did not help clean up, did not participate or help the show in any sort of capacity, was best show in Michigan. And this is not the first time I've heard that show. And I'm a big believer where there's smoke, there's fire. What do you think, man? What's going on?
Well, I'm not... I mean, it could be. It's definitely up there.
So modest.
So
very modest.
I had people come to our table to tell us that they came specifically because they've been hearing about how great this show is.
I have been getting a lot of people that are coming from, hours away that come into the shop, and I probably did 6 or 7 interviews for like TikTok and Instagrams and YouTubes and MMA promoting stuff and whatever else on Saturday. So there's definitely an influx of influencers out there that are stopping into the show, that are, streaming from the show. They streamed from the shop. They were, in groups, like showing the showcases and selling stuff right out of the showcase, which, I mean, that's fine. So, good for you. Did a bunch of interviews for that, but there are a lot of people that are coming from farther away just because, they're like, hey, I can't go to the Burbank show or Dallas, but I can drive 2 hours to Lansing, So there's definitely a lot of people coming from far away, and we appreciate having them, and we're going to try and make it as good as we can.
One thing that was very apparent to me is Courtney and I were standing there. We didn't get to walk the show as much as possible because we were supposed to have a third person there to help us. And, we had to woman up and make it happen in the absence of one Manuel. The amount of cameras around, like, this is truly becoming a show, because if you're a content creator, you're not going to a podunk show, and no disrespect to any upcoming show or anybody that puts on a show.
Respectfully to the podunk shows.
Yeah.
Cancel Jeremy now.
No, but you know what I mean? Like, you wouldn't go to like a VFW to film content, most likely. And the amount of people that were coming around filming content, and some of these people had I guess they had 1 million followers on YouTube and stuff like that. And, obviously I'm old, so I don't know who the hell they are, but that speaks volumes to what's cooking here in Michigan. And when I was over in California, I got to hear about how California is the greatest place in the world, that's the only place that collects cards. And I'm like, man, people are sleeping on Michigan because Michigan's got some wild stuff going on.
There's a lot of great shows in the Midwest. I mean, you know, obviously Dallas and the National and all that stuff are great, but you know, Chicago's a good show, Lansing's a good show, Shipsy's a good show. You know, those are all Midwest shows, and you know, we have money too, and we like our stuff. So
Yes, Midwest money is just as green as California money.
Maybe a little greener now. Matt actually got a hold of me because he kind of gets jealous because he lives in Louisiana, and he always asks, like, I wish my area had this many card shows, because they see us going to card shows every single week. Well, as Jeremy and Courtney go to card shows every single weekend, and Manny's been slacking. But we have Garrett here saying Lansing was a good time, Pokemon moving like crazy.
I had a ton of people come up and ask us about Pokemon, and we don't do Pokemon. So I was directing them to the table next to us that was like insanely tons of Pokemon.
Dennis, you were on a channel, and I think Jeremy's talking about the same guy. He has 1 million followers, and he came to your show after the last one and was trying to do a trade-up challenge with you. The funny thing is I was watching that show. Jeremy and Courtney made an appearance as well. They were making out in the background, and I took a picture of it and sent it to them.
You're such a creep.
So
a million notice it.
Saw Jeremy and Courtney making out in the background of this kid's video. It was the best.
If that's the only video they saw of Court and I, we're doing okay.
I was gonna say OnlyFans coming soon.
We've been talking about
That would
that
sell. That would absolutely sell. Hobby OnlyFans for
Just not
sure.
at the Lansing show. We don't do adult stuff at the Lansing show.
No, that's the back of your store, right? The back.
Hey, that's not part of the show, man.
Yeah.
The first ever hobby casting couch.
Yeah. I got the carpet for it in the store, so.
Oh my god! You know, I've had like 2 people message me like this week, like, "Oh, are you doing a hobby casting couch?" Like twice, and now this. I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah,
Y'all are a mess.
Well,
It's a sign.
Jeremy and I were promoting that we were going to go to the Lansing show and put a couch and call it the Lansing show casting couch. So that's probably what they were asking about.
That makes more sense now because I wasn't at that show. That's the back of the Spencer. That Spencer store was lit. It was fun. They have tons of Pokemon stuff in there. I was like, oh, this is cool. Look at these T-shirts.
So, Dennis, let me ask you this. And it's something I actually meant to ask you the last time we had on, and we got sidetracked because Manny's unprofessional. When you're setting up and you're putting on the show, is your primary focus just making sure that it's a good show, or do you try to, obviously make sure that you put on a good show, but also hope that you maybe slang a couple cards and have a good show as well, setting up as a vendor?
So I spent 0 minutes at my show tables on Saturday. I didn't sit down behind the table one time, and probably going forward, I'm just going to be set up in the shop and dealing with people in there, because the amount of people that I had that were bringing Pokemon sports, all that stuff into the store to, sell, trade, whatever, or ask questions it was insurmountable, for me to be able to do both and to walk around the show and ask people how they're doing, shoot the shit, whatever. That was definitely at a minimum because it was just too busy. And me not having tables out there, I think going forward is going to at least give me an opportunity to take one thing off of my plate. And I don't mind doing that just so, I can have 160 people out there doing their thing. And I have the shop, so those will be my tables going forward.
I can't confirm that because I went looking for you like a couple times and I couldn't find you. I'm like, man, he is too busy. So
the rumor is when he's not at the table, his nephew's giving 50% discounts. Is what
I did hear that.
Yeah. So
It's definitely possible. I'm not even there, you know, but I do know what's in the showcases, so
Yeah.
you know, that's good.
What I know we've said it before, but what I really love about the Lansing show is you could tell every dealer that you bring in is kind of like together. They're good close friends, and no one's like butting heads with the different people in the show. I know Courtney's dealt with that in the past about another dealer getting upset with Courtney for no reason. I do like that about it. It just seems like a family base type of setting.
There's
So
a
I,
bunch of guys that like they have their own little island, like Bill and Jerry and Dale and Vern and Randy. Like they all want to sit together. They have a dozen tables all lined up in a row and around the backside, just so they can, you know, work together. You know, watch each other's table while they're doing other things or making deals, things like that. And there's definitely a lot of guys that, you know, have a bunch of tables with a bunch of their friends and come out and do their thing. So
it's like a party. That middle section, those guys, I sit there and I watch them just like mess around. I'm like, if this is your job, this is a great job to have. And to be clear, I've never ever had beef with anyone at a
Courtney
car
has
show
a
before.
whole bunch of hobby beef,
I
Dennis.
I had a guy come up and yell at me at a show one time, but it had nothing to do with anything that I did. And so I want to put that out there. I've never ever had any hobby beef. So
not
I
even
mean, you
on
got rocked.
the
You got
SD
rocked by cardboard one time.
Yeah, you
You
did.
know your HGA video court.
yeah,
Let's
my
not.
thumbs. Actually,
People didn't like your.
that's not true. I
People didn't
almost
like
had
your
beef at the-
nails.
I almost had beef at the Lansing show. Dennis was trying to get me to fight some lady. I'm like, I'm not gonna do this. I walk in, he's like, that's fine. I'll just have Courtney I'll have Courtney kick your butt. I'm like, what? Courtney's not.
In my defense, that was my daughter's mom. So
Yeah, no. And she was so
it wasn't just a random lady.
It would have been a lot cooler if it was Dennis.
That's true. Yeah, that old lady
Dennis just over there
poodle
flinging them
was saying
5-letter B words and then volunteering Courtney to get her ass whipped.
I'm like, I'm pretty sure she could kick my ass. I don't want to do this. Like,
nah, she's all bark, no bite. You're fine.
she was. We were folding the tablecloths up at the end together, and Jeremy was like folding like one tablecloth to our like 5, and then he finished up. And he's like, I folded all these tablecloths.
To be clear, you guys, you and her were not folding them. You were kind of just going like this. I was corner to corner, crisp, tight. I guarantee if you go look at them, I took pride in my work. Quality over quantity, Courtney.
You also only folded the square ones. You would not fold a single round one.
Well, I mean, I tried doing one. I spent 15 minutes messing with it. I said, to hell with this. Leave it for the ladies.
Yeah, that's why mine just get like kind of rolled up, and I just like it's fine.
So I want to talk a little bit about what goes into the day before, because we've talked to a lot of people who set up card shows, and we always talk about the day of everything. You're posting videos the night before of everything, you know, all the tables set up. Let's talk a little bit about what it takes to decide. You know, you have those guys like, oh, I want to be by this guy, I want to be by this guy, and I want this spot, I want that spot. How do you handle all of that? And let's talk a little bit about that, because I'm so curious how that works.
Well, I have the list of, you know, the last show we had 167 tables. And so I look at the list, and then basically it's just based on layout. I mean, if you do the show every month and you're like, hey, I like this spot, it makes it easier for me to keep you in that spot. You guys have a spot, my spot, B's spot, Ed's spot, all these guys that do the show every single month. I know where they're going. But when we rotate out 50, 60 dealers, you know, some take a month off or 2 months off or whatever it is, you know, then I have to fill in those gaps. And everybody wants to be in the middle. Everybody wants to be on the main aisle. Everybody wants, like, well, that's just not possible. So it gets filled in based on so-and-so has 4 tables, but there's only 3 spots left in this row. Obviously, he's not going there. So I look at that and do that. It only takes us probably 2.5 hours to set up all the tables and the chairs and the, skirts and everything like that. And it takes me probably about that long to do the layout for everybody. But other than that, I mean, it's a process every day, just, keeping everybody straight and, making sure I'm organized with my list, which is not my strong suit. But the day before is pretty much easy because I'm ready to go and we knock it out and taking it down. The more help I have, the better. And usually we're out of there within 2 hours and going to Frank's, have a burger and celebrate. And then I go home and ice down my back and all that stuff because I'm old.
Go home and die. That's what
it.
I do. I go put my feet up. I'm like, oh, my feet hurt so bad. And I didn't do half the work you did. Can we talk a little bit about how you find vendors? Do you have a waiting list now? Are there still people that you can't get in? Do you call if somebody cancels?
Yeah, I tell probably 30 people a month that we're sold out. I mean, I can rent more tables. I can sell 200 plus tables every show, but I like to keep it at a manageable number. I like to keep it, kind of in close quarters where everybody can see everybody or at least see the end of the show and, keep it all in a straight line pretty much from the back wall going forward. And, the people that message me like on Friday and ask for a table for the show that's tomorrow, that's just never going to work. You're going to have to let me know at least 2 weeks in advance. And if I have a spot, it's first come, first serve. If you haven't done the show in 6 months and, you want to do the show, that's great, but I'm going to need to know about it as soon as possible.
Has there been any future plans? I know you talked about it last time we went live, to doing the TCG, since Courtney said the TCG world is getting more and more. And I know you kind of showed interest of doing a TCG show.
Yeah, I would like to do like Pokemon, Magic, and comic books, and do one of those. And it's probably something that I'm planning for 4 or 5 months out, just so, because I'm not the guy that's going to put together a show that has 20 tables at it just to do it.
Mm-hmm.
If I can get 70, 80 tables, make it a legit show, get some hitters in there that, people are going to want to come out to see. I used to work for a card store back in the day who has, more stuff than God, and talk to him and he's like, oh yeah, absolutely. I'd do a big setup and, there's a bunch of guys like Frankie and Dalton and all that come to the show that set up with nothing but Pokemon. They would definitely be in. But getting the comic dealers, which is,
I had a guy stop at our table and ask me about comics.
Yep.
Yeah. He was like, do you think that comics would do well at this show? And I'm like, I think so. I'm like, nobody's selling them. And the cross market between the TCG and the comic books is pretty, like, there's a lot of people that do it. I'm like, I personally have, because of some of my offshoot collections, like the Stranger Things and the Disney and like some of the Star Wars and Marvel stuff. Yes, Manuel has a ton of comic books.
I'm ready for the comic book.
You look like a kid. I know that they've made like Stranger Things comics now, and with my Stranger Things like collection going now, I just bought Nikes. I have the the pops. I have the T-shirts that I've been picking up. So the next logical thing for me is if I'm at a show and there's Stranger Things comics, I'm definitely going to be scooping those up. So I think once you get into the space, it's just a matter of, time before you're collecting other things that aren't just strictly cards.
Yep. I've done I used to do a lot more comics than I do currently. Most of the people that collect comics, though, don't sell comics. And so trying to pick up comic collections is a lot more difficult than trying to pick up a sports card collection or a Pokemon collection. Picking up a Magic card collection is also tough because the people that play Magic don't sell Magic. And so if you can find enough comics, enough Magic, enough Pokemon to have a legit setup. I mean, there is absolutely a market for it. It's just being able to procure enough inventory to have a viable setup.
I get, I'm like one of those bugs that go towards the light with comic book stores. So I went into yours and I saw, Dennis has like, he's modest. He has like the Batman where it's the first appearance of Bane just out. And I'm like looking at it like, do I buy it? I had to slap myself and be like, I'm at a card show. Let me go back to the table. So he does have some nice stuff in the back of his store. You just got to go wander in there.
Manuel buys autographed jerseys and comic books at card shows and no cards at all.
Yeah. Dennis.
When he attends said show.
When he goes to one.
At Shipshawana, some guy came up to me and asked if I wanted a Luka auto. And I was like, no, I'm not collecting Luka. And he's like, no. It's a framed jersey. And so I got like a sweet framed jersey of Luka. I was going to bring it to the show, but, kids.
So Jeremy and I had one of the best shows that we've ever had at this past Lansing show as far as consistency, the amount of cards that we ended up picking up, and the amount of cards that we moved. It was legit. It was a really good show for us. I feel like we keep saying that at the end of each show. It's like, oh, this is the best show we've ever had. This is the best show we've ever had. But this past weekend at Lansing was legitimately probably, as far as, selling things and trading out of cards that we were no longer interested in keeping and picking up new stuff that will move at our next show. It was stellar.
Mm-hmm.
I think the next show will be even better because JSA will be coming back in April. And when they were there in January, I mean, they had a full crew of 3 people, gave them 2 tables to do all the, authentications. And they're like, I would have stopped taking stuff a half hour after we started because there were just loads of people bringing stuff in. And that's great because I have a shop. If you want to sell any of that freshly minted stuff that you just got authenticated, swing it on in and we'll take a look at it.
There you go.
Listen to the guy below me, man.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Dennis. You're a veteran in this game. You've forgotten more than the 3 of us will ever know. Courtney and I are very analytical when we're done. We're thinking about everything. Like, how can we do that better? How can we set things up better? Can we be friendlier? Can we provide better deals? And we're constantly adjusting and tinkering. I assume that's why we've had success, because we're willing to not be so stubborn and set in our ways that even though we thought Kobe Bryant refractors were awesome, I remember setting up at a show where we had nothing but mid-90s refractors and, numbered stuff, and it did not move. It did not move. We were shocked. We thought we were going to have the best show ever. And quite frankly, it was disappointing, but we've adjusted based on paying attention to what the people around us are saying. Is that part of the maturation process as a vendor, is adjusting and, being willing to change, or are we just on a hot streak and lucky?
You have to know your market. I mean, if you're trying to sell, $1,000 cards in an area that's economically deprived, I mean, you're probably not going to do real well. And being able to adjust for the time of year, what sports are going on, who's playing well, who's not playing well. I mean, who's going to be asked about at the show. Now, when the baseball classic was going on and, people were talking about Trey Turner and Shohei and all that stuff. I mean, great. Put those guys out because that's who people are seeing right now. And, people aren't looking for John Morant right now. So, put those in the box and wait a minute. And, maybe he stops going to strip clubs and then, we can start selling him again. But just paying attention to the market and knowing your audience that you're at. And you guys have been at Lansing enough now. What the market is. There's 5, 6, 8, 10 people that come around that have the money to buy the higher end stuff. So it makes sense to bring it. But you can't fill your whole showcase with it. having the 10, 20, $30 cards, everybody's there looking for that stuff. And if it's priced right, and if it's people that are relevant today, that stuff's going to sell. And that's all there is to it.
That is something that's benefited us, is that we as vendors are willing to pick up some higher end cards that I know, not a lot of people are looking or want to buy those. So we've done well picking up some cards that maybe we wouldn't have had the opportunity to pick up at other places because there's so many people buying, at some of the other shows, those higher end cards.
Yeah. Well, and in Lansing, if you're Joe Schmo that's setting up, that the majority of your cards are $5, $10, $15, and you pull the $3,000 Luca out of a pack, okay, where are you going to sell it at? Are you going to put it on eBay? Are you going to put it in a Facebook group? Or are you going to sell it to the guy that's offering you $2,000 for it, right now in front of you? And a lot of people will move it at the show. I mean, there's plenty of guys, TNT's set up at the shows now. They're spending, $15,000, $20,000 at every show, and they buy good stuff. If you have good stuff and it's priced right, there's a bunch of people there with money that are throwing it around. So
that's the only dealer. That's the only dealers we request not to be next to is TNT, right, Jeremy?
Yeah, you can keep Tyler the hell away from me, my man. He walks up and his bankroll's a little bit bigger than mine, man. When he whips out $50K and he's like, "Yeah, I'll buy everything."
Like, man, you're stepping on my toes.
Shout out!
But yeah. What's good, fellas? I think that's one thing that, like, as a show, I know, and that's something that we're talking about doing, and how you deliver that message is letting people know that, because when the first time we went to a show, I loved the idea of selling cards, but I didn't know you could just walk up to a vendor and be like, "Hey, do you want to buy it?" Like, I didn't understand the etiquette that went into it. This show, why I find it so appealing is there's 5, 10, 15, 20 people that will spend serious money. I'm not talking $10, $20. I'm talking we'll spend 5 figures without hesitation. And if you know that you can do that at a show, you can always be a participant. And so I think just stressing that collectively, we can continue to grow the show and make it bigger and better.
There's 10 of those guys that I can think of easy at that show, that if you have a table that has $50,000 worth of inventory and you want to go home with nothing but an empty case, you can make that happen. You're not going to get 100% comp on it, but you're not going to get 60% either. And they'll be like, "Yep, I'll take it all, and here's a big fat stack of money."
Let me ask you this: from where Courtney and I are set up, if you looked at like what 12 o'clock would be, and then over 1, there was a guy who had the end cap. So he was just kitty corner from us. He did that. He sold Manny. He had a showcase, and then he had boxes of like $10 cards.
Twice.
Sold out, rebought, sold out. I bought from him like 3 times throughout the show. Yep. Easy to work with. Told him what I was trying to do. He told me what he was trying to do. And 50 cards, 30 cards, one of the easiest transactions I've ever dealt with.
Kim told me she bought like 4 collections while she was there.
Jeez.
Just the whole boxes. She's like, "I don't even have room in my car." And then she came over and bought a whole 2 row of all of our cards.
She had to sell some stuff at like 2:30 because she was like, "I forgot to pay you when I spent all my money." And she came over. She gave me the table money, and she's like, "I got $15 left. I'm ready. I'm good to go."
And she walked by. She walked by. I'm like, "Kim," and she looked up. She's like, "Oh, I didn't know you were here." And I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "I don't know if I have room in my car for all of the stuff that I bought." Oh my God.
That's
I'm like,
crazy.
It is.
So one thing that I thought was really cool about this show was we're starting to see more and more ladies and girls participating, not just being there like as somebody who's just walking along the side, but actually buying cards, selling cards, talking sports. And I think it's cool because it shows that the environment is a welcoming environment, and you're starting to see more and more people. So obviously I've got 3 daughters, so that's something that's kind of and Manny, you've got a couple of daughters, so you love to see it, right?
Yep, I do. I was they came to the last one, and the excitement that my 4-year-old had when she saw Courtney's like Pixar and Disney cards, what made my day. And her ripping Disney while we went live, the Disney 100, where now they're pumped up. Me and Courtney were ripping those things at the last Lansing show with Haven, so that was a special moment.
It was super cool. I see people. I walked around the whole show. I did walk the whole show. And as I'm like walking, I am just watching all of the transactions. I can't get over, like, there were points where I couldn't even walk in between people, and there is space. Like, it is comfortably spaced. It is cool. This is like one
Good
of the
Wi-Fi.
Yes, good Wi-Fi. It's one of the best shows as far as, the setup. Obviously, you spend a lot of time thinking about it. The buyers there, the tables, the vendors. It's not just people coming, throwing some stuff down. The tables, you can go to almost any table and they're willing to buy, they're willing to trade, everything. So you see all these people going up and down, and it is just nonstop transactions. And I couldn't get over how busy it was within like 20 minutes of opening. You see a lot of shows, it's like slow, and then you have like the middle part of the show where it's just packed, and then slow. This show, from like start to finish, it was busy the whole time.
It was busy till about 4:30.
Yeah, people were still doing
just
deals.
Gonna say yes.
Yep.
The show's over, people are still set up doing deals. I was like,
It's cool.
There's a kid, Dennis, who's set up for you. Manny, you're right. He was a Hispanic kid who set up. He came up and he had a travel luggage along with a massive Zion case. And he came over and he's like, "Hey, are you buying?" I'm like, "Yeah." And it took me like probably 45 minutes. Like, the show was well closed. And I didn't realize he had like an actual luggage that he opened up and started pulling out more and more
Was it the
and
little kid?
no.
Oh, he's
probably
probably
like
early 20s.
20, yeah.
There was a 10-year-old kid that had his own table at the show.
Oh, jeez.
That is absolutely awesome.
He came into the store, he's looking at Pokemon, and he was like, how much is a table for your show? And I said, well, the tables are $50. He's like, I think I would like to buy one.
Aww.
Like, okay. So he gives me his money, tells me his name, I write it down. He's like, so we're all set? I'm like, yep. So he does the show. I walk by, I see him, say hey. And at the end of the show, when I was walking back around, I was just done talking to you guys. This kid walks up to me and bumps me in the, back and looks at me all weird. And it was the kid. And I was like, hey man, how did you do? And he whispers how much he sold today. And I was like, shit, that's good, man. And give him a high five. And he came into the store today and he's like, I just came in to, spend my money that I made. And he signed up for the next show. And
that's awesome.
There was something behind the counter that my nephew was asking about. He was like, where'd you get this? And the 10-year-old kid was like, I got it from your mom's house last night.
Yes.
Yeah, this is my favorite kid. So I gave him a deal on Pokemon stuff that he wanted because the kid's got giant balls. I love it.
That is the best kid I've ever heard of.
Yeah, he's awesome.
He beats our kids.
That's going to be Dennis' future employee. Dennis almost hired him on spot.
Oh, for sure. If I wasn't worried about child labor laws, he'd be working there right now.
Here's the keys to the shop, kid. Bring it home. Well, while we're on the topic of kids, it pains me that I can't think. What's the kid's name? The kid's an absolute hustler. Is it
Lamar
Vinny?
Jackson. That's what I call him. Is that the kid?
Noah?
No. Yeah, the Lamar Jackson kid.
Alex or Parker.
The one kid that's at literally every show ever.
Yes.
With the Lamar Jackson.
He came up and he tried we were in the middle of a deal and he tried doing something. And finally, I just stopped and I told him straight up like this. I'm like, you don't get the child treatment anymore, dude. You're walking around with $50,000 in your case. You might fool all these other people that think you're a sweet, innocent kid. You've graduated. You're with the big boys now. And then,
Right,
like,
step
he
out of the
paused.
way.
He didn't know what to. Yeah, he didn't know what to say. I'm like, that's a compliment. Like, you conduct yourself like an adult, so you're going to be treated like an adult. Don't think you're going to come over here and buy $100 cards for $10 and use that like
Right.
your dimples to get anything out of me, man.
Right. Yep. All I
Didn't
have
I,
is
Court?
$8
I
for
just
no
G checked
allowance.
his ass. Take your ass
It was
walking.
so funny because there was a guy sitting at our table. I don't think he knew who that
His
kid
dad or
was.
uncle.
No.
Oh, yeah.
There was a guy sitting at our
Yeah.
table. He's like, "Oh, he's just a kid." I'm like, "No, that's not a kid.
That's not a kid.
That's a
Right.
man.
It's a 40-year-old man and a
He's
10-year-old
a
child.
man." I'm like, "He's
Yes.
a man." I'm
That's
like, "Don't worry, he'll be fine. He's gonna go home and cry to all his money and his $100,000."
Right.
that kid scares me. When I see him, I avoid him because how bad he hustles people. He would. I remember at a show, I showed him like this $1,000 card. He was like, "I'll give you 400. Take it or leave it." And I'm like, "Well, how do you come up with
Leave
400?"
it.
Huh? Yeah,
I'm gonna leave it.
You're right. You're right.
I'm gonna leave it.
Yeah, exactly. He was, and then he wouldn't give me my card back. I was like, no. He's like, all right, how about 450? I'm like, no, like give me my card back. I'm leaving.
Manny gets arrested because he's like wrestling a kid at a card show. It's like he won't give it back.
No.
Oh no, that kid would have beat Manny's ass.
Well, he'd have, the spear me with his head or something. What's up, Big
No,
John?
Manny, there was a big demand for soccer at this show too,
Yeah.
Really?
which was a little bit shocking because I was talking with somebody on Twitter and they were like, "Man, there's so many like soccer collectors in Michigan. However, there's usually not a big presence at any of the shows." And I moved the Mbappe, the Futera golden goal.
Mhm.
Never thought in a million years I'd move that card at this show. Moved it, man. There was a lot of people looking for soccer, so you kind of you not being there.
Garrett said he got hustled by a YouTube kid. The YouTube kid was walking to the table and told my wife, "Watch this kid hustle me." He got me good. My wife was like, "I like that kid. He's so adorable."
We've
He's
all been
getting
hustled by kids, dude. Every single one of us has been hustled.
Garrett,
by a
you
child.
are in the comment section of a YouTube video of how much of a boob you are, my friend. we need to beat these kids down.
Yep. No, I do want to give you credit too, because like Courtney, how she's saying that the show was amazing. The dealers are amazing. My experience, and this was before I met Reckless, I was going to the show prior to you taking it over. There's a lot of dealers in the past, and this is like the 2020 boom, right? They had bad comps, that didn't price their cards, that didn't really want to talk to people. So I kind of had like a bad experience, but you could tell the dynamic of the show has changed. And I don't want to be rude to the past owners because I do like them a lot, but you could tell that you kind of shifted this show into a positive direction. And I do want to say thank you for that.
Well, I definitely appreciate that. And, it's all about just staying in communication with the people that set up at the show. And if you want to be successful at the show, I can help you, but you got to be willing to help yourself.
Yep.
It doesn't hurt to have a Courtney out there, saying hi to the kids and, flirting with the guys and, all that good stuff.
Beating up women.
Jezebel.
Beating up other women.
Yeah, beating up women.
Yeah, well, I mean, she's got to be nice to the guys. She doesn't have to be nice to the women.
No, Courtney is a big
She's definitely not starting no static with Kim because Kim's a boss and she'd take you down in about 4 seconds.
I would never. Kim
throws 5,000 count boxes of cards in the back seat like they're nickels.
She does it, man. She's too cool. That's the thing. She's
cool.
She's way cooler than
she's
me.
Good people.
I can't with it. She is too cool for me. I'm not cool enough to even try with him.
She is cool. But there's a lot of people like her that, guys, girls, whoever, kids, 10-year-olds setting up at the show doing their thing. For any child labor people, he did have a parent, so they were there. But it's definitely fun, and everybody likes to joke around and help people and trade, and there's a million people doing trade up challenges and videos and all that kind of stuff, and it's just fun. It's a fun time.
Your show, I think because we set up at it now so regularly, it feels like a community there. Like it really, everybody knows each other. You walk up, you're like, oh, how's your kid? You know, what's your wife up to? Oh, did you close on that house you were talking about? You know, one guy, like we had a whole conversation about how he was like, the last show he was talking about quitting his job. And this show he's like, oh, I'm full-time cards now. I'm like, so you get to know everyone, and it does it. You have more than a lot of other shows that I go to, this one has a real sense of community. Like everybody's like, they really care about each other.
That's
one thing that you hear is Manny is like, everybody's like, oh, you're looking for this, go to this table. You're looking for this, go to that table. They're like, everybody's trying to help one another out. And to Courtney's point, it truly does. Like, it's cool. You go there and you buy cards, you sell cards, which is awesome. You go home with a little bit of coin in your pocket, great. But you feel like you're hanging out for. I mean, it went from like 8:30 in the morning till like, holy shit, it's already 2:00. Like, hadn't eaten or drinking anything. Just been kind of like, I felt like kind of BS. And
I walked down to Auntie Anne's, and they told me to go F myself because I only brought a $50 bill with me. And they're like, yeah, we can't break that. I'm like, I don't know why I thought you could. So I walked all the way back to the table, and then I went back again. And then I was like, here you go. And they're like, here, we saved it for you. They were really nice.
The only cash
Courtney treats 50s like Manny treats pennies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I gave her a 20 and she's like, what the hell is this? I don't want to touch one of these things.
The only cash flow in that mall is the card show, to be honest with you.
It's true. There's pizza, and the movie theater is pretty good, though. I do like that.
There's a new bakery. I'm going to shout out that bakery because that guy walked around. He was hustling. He was really nice. And also, like, my kids got, like, hardcore, like, insane allergies. And they, that bakery in the mall does, like, allergy specialty baking for people. And I thought it was cool that he was kind of walking around talking to everyone at the card show. I'm like, you're smart. Like, you got Dennis over here bringing actual people into this mall. This is the most people that are going to be in this mall all month. And so going around and having conversations, I took his card. We'll probably order a cake from him.
Do you know what they had in the mall last weekend? Was it last weekend they had the UFC fights or MMA fights?
I was in the ring, man.
Were you? You gotta expand on this story. Yeah, they have MMA fights there, Courtney.
Yeah, every 3 months.
Oh, we're going.
And they're legit. I watch them from the shop. You guys come on.
Oh, we're coming. I love MMA.
Yes.
I had no idea this was a thing.
My daughter, we set a table out, and I put a chair on top of the table, and my daughter was sitting up on top of the table and the chair, like watching the fights. And so the promoter is Ron DeLeon, and he does it like every 3 months. That's why there was no big giant pots in the middle of the thing, because they took them out for the cage, and then I talked them all into leaving them out for the show. And I talked to him about, like, hey man, maybe I could get in the ring and, talk about the shop and, the card show that I got going on. So we started chopping it up for a little while, and he's a cool dude, does his thing, knows his shit. And he has like sponsorships for his events and everything, but it was too close to the event, and I didn't really want to, pay money for something and not get the full Monty on it, And so during the fights on Saturday, he's walking around. He knows that I'm watching. He comes over to the shop and he's like, hey man, do you still want to get in the ring? And I'm like, yeah, shit, why not? And he's like, well, come on, after this fight, we'll get you up in there. And gave me a cool intro. I got to go up in there and do my thing. My daughter Snapchatted it with like a caption that was like, yo, that's my dad. And, so that was all. It became
immensely cooler to her.
Yeah.
Yep. So, yeah.
It was you would have saw it. Dennis sent me the video afterwards, and like I liked how his outfit completely matched, and he had a card that had a big number 2 on it, and then he circled the ring one time and got out.
He had heels on.
I didn't even fall in my heels or nothing.
Your butt looks so like good in those booty shorts.
Yeah, the booty shorts.
Your little booty shorts with the little bottom of your butt cheeks hanging out. It was fantastic.
It was pretty good. I didn't have any
hair. Court saw the video
or anything. It was good.
Courtney saw the video and she's like, damn, that's got to be jelly because Jam don't jiggle like that.
I'm like, doesn't he know people's wives watch this?
Yeah.
Hey, sex sells, Courtney. I thought you knew that.
I do know it. I do. I'm aware.
I do want to. You guys will all feel kind of good about this, about our Michigan Collect, like our collectible hobby in Michigan based. Cousin Collectibles got a hold of me and said they went to the Philly show, and they said that they keep hearing us on how good the Lansing show is and how good the shows that we're going to, that they have a different experience at Philly and how like it's not the same. Dealers are overcomped. They're not willing to deal. But then they did give an asterisk that maybe it's because they're vintage collectors. Tony is a vintage collector. So I do want to give you guys props, and Dennis, especially you, because you put on the show. You could bring these type of dealers, but you choose not to. So I do want to give you props for that too. I
heard the same about the Philly show, that it's a lot of like vintage, a lot of like old time, like I don't know how to say this respectfully. It's a lot of like old hat dealers. It's boomers. Yeah, it's a lot of like old hat dealers that have been doing it for a long, long time and are not as flexible and willing to, progress with the times because they are changing. And that is something that I have been hearing about the Philly show specifically a few times. So that is not something that was new information to me.
Mm-hmm. I didn't know that either.
So for the Lansing show, I love vintage. That shit's awesome.
I do too.
And it's dried up. I mean, you're not finding big, huge vintage collections. You're not buying great vintage at a big margin. It's just not happening. But if well, hey, come to Lansing.
Yeah,
everything's in Lansing.
Cousin says that they don't have ring dudes in panties out in Philly.
Yeah, tell them to come to Lansing.
You're missing out, man. Michigan's where it's at.
Manny get up there in his Menudo shirt and everything, doing his thing. It's fine.
Got a crop top.
Yeah, we're going karaoke night. Karaoke.
He's like,
so the tits hang out the bottom though, because that's where the magic is.
Yeah, and the butt cheeks and the under boob. If you a little side boob's good too.
We could do
under boob's sexier than.
You want to tease. You want to tease a little bit, leave a little something for the imagination.
I like side boob, but that's just my preference.
Jeremy and I will do a wet T-shirt competition too. So
I got 10 on you, bud.
You got whoever's got
Manny could do the roller skates.
Manny's got sand dollar nipples. I can feel it.
You feel like just big, huge nipples.
Those things look like the things you find on the beach, man. It's got more bumps on it than a Braille Bible.
Damn, Manny, you're getting sunned. Getting absolutely sunned.
Chest is more nipple than chest.
Next show, Tony, come to Lansing. You'll see a show.
Manny takes his shirt off and it's just two big nipples, no pecs at all.
See, now you got Courtney going. Now we're going really.
Well,
you've heard of like
I get them started and I just
like dinner plates,
yeah,
just like dinner.
You were about to say something really nice about vintage cards, and then it went.
I was, and then now we're talking about Manny's nipples.
Manny's giant nipples.
That will be synonymous with vintage cards for the remainder of my life.
Never, ever. It's like it's ingrained in my head. Anytime I see a vintage card, I'll just be like, "Oh, big nipples."
Yep. Menudo nipples.
Okay, how about these vintage cards, Dennis?
I like the vintage stuff, but they are right, though, that the people that generally sell mostly vintage are usually older people that have been doing it for 40 years. And those people, their stuff is their price. If I talk to Jeremy and I ask, hey, you got this at 100, I want to be at 80. He's like, yeah, $80. It's all yours. You go to a vintage guy, you're like, hey, you got it priced at $5. I need to be at 4. And he's like, well, then you need to buy it from someone else.
Yeah, vintage guys do
And-
not move on their prices.
Right.
They
And I
are-
mean, a deal to them is $490. And, I mean, if you know that going in, or if you're looking for a Banks rookie or something like that, and you want one that you can hold in your hand and look at and see, I mean, if they're priced at comp or close to comp, then that's about as good a deal as you're going to get on that stuff usually. But we try not to have people that, hey, it comps at 500, it's priced at 1,000. I mean, what are you supposed to do with that? And those people that, want to show up and just, look at their cards and avoid their wives for 6 hours, I mean, I guess if that's what you want and that's a good experience for you, that's okay, as long as you're polite to everybody. But, the guys that are like, well, that's the price, I don't give a shit about eBay, go whatever, take.
There's always
I
those
mean,
guys.
on,
I don't even know what comps mean. I'm like, well,
Right.
I don't know how you don't know what comps mean.
Right. I mean, that's just the world that we're living in now. Is everybody looks at their phones. Everybody knows on a second by second basis what stuff goes for.
It's almost like they're mad that they can't rip people off anymore.
I mean, maybe. Yeah.
It feels that way. Like I watched a guy yell at a kid. It was like, I say kid loosely, like the kid had to be like like 17, between 17 and 19, and he was looking at like this guy had a bunch of vintage stuff. I'm not sure specifically what the kid wanted, but it was something that was pretty liquid. Like you had like the ability to buy like more than one of this card. And he's like, oh, he's like, they were chatting for a little bit. And I think the kid thought that he was building a rapport with this guy. And this wasn't at your show. This was at a different show. And he's like, so I looked it up and the comps on this, and the guy, like in an instant, his entire demeanor changed. He went from real affable, friendly guy talking about his cards, really enjoying it, to just like, I don't want to hear about your comps. I don't give a shit. And he was like yelling at this kid, like to the point the kid looked startled and like stepped back. And he's like, okay. And he just like walked away. And then there were like 3 other people kind of standing around this guy's table. They all walked away. And I'm like, now you're not selling any of your cards. So I hope that was worth it, because you look like a crazy person.
Well,
I'll say the show. It was the Taylor show.
It was the Taylor show. I didn't want to say it.
And the Troy show, it happened to me. So I'll say that too.
Yeah.
Tell me sweats and meat sticks, we'll say it.
The good thing about this show is there are a bunch of good buyers there, and the dealers know who they are. And if you want to move stuff and you see those guys walking around, even if they're not stopping at your table or you don't have something that they're instantly looking for, like, hey man, I'm looking to move $2,000 worth of stuff, they'll take a look. They're like, okay, well, I need to be at XYZ price. Like, that's fine. Pick out what you want. Those people are all around. You can sell anything you want if you're willing to make a deal for somebody.
Yep.
I do. I feel like it's like an epiphany, because I remember back in the day when you're kids, you're going into the card shop, you had like, you could like guess what a card's worth, or like, you have Beckett or whatever. And if the card shop owner, or at a card show, the dealer's like, that's what this card's worth, you literally only have that guy's word for it, or walking around looking to see if anyone else is selling the same card for a similar amount of money. And so these guys who've been dealing for decades are setting up at these shows with these kids, this new generation of collectors who can like scan your cards with alt, or Ludix, or they all take pictures now. Every single app, you can just like scan cards and see all the comps, price ranges, what these apps are valuing them, like on whatever index they're using. And I think that they've gotten, it looks like Erica said, it's like my way or the highway attitude, but you don't have that luxury anymore, because
but those people won't last.
No.
I mean, the buyers today are way more informed than they've ever been. The dealers today that are successful, are good people to deal with. This business is 100% relationship driven. And if you can't build relationships with other dealers and other buyers, then you're probably an asshole and you won't be successful.
Yeah,
And
I like what Erica said, by the way, because this is actually an experience of me when I first got in. She said it's hard to buy from vintage sellers, not a good experience. This kind of got me off of the vintage world, and like she said, moving forward, and rather speed walk past their table. So I kind of got that same vibe when I started in the hobby, and then we got Cousin Collectibles that says that has something to do with it. Buyers are much more educated now. They know that these cards tend to appreciate over time. So I just want to bring those two because it is kind of relatable of what we're talking about.
I agree. And I have someone in here saying, so I gotta take a little bit of I disagree with that comment. I don't think every new person in the hobby is a flipper. I'm talking about like the young youthful collectors now that are collecting in a different way than how even we collected when we were kids. Cards are different in that, like when we were kids, we like dicked around with our cards. We put them in binders. It's not the same. Kids get cards now and they take care of them. There's not going to be that like, oh, this is a rare card because it got smashed up and there's only like 10 of them that are in good shape. Everyone all these kids take care of their cards now. It is not the same.
Yeah, we're not talking about like the ones that are priced at comps. We're like Dennis said, we're talking about the ones that have a $500 card, kind of what Cousin said, and they're pricing it at $1K, and they're like, go find another one or go do this or get out of here. Don't look at comps.
You can find them though. That's the thing, is there's so many platforms to buy cards on. I'm not going to buy a card from you for $500 over comps when I can like hit buy it now on eBay and have it shipped to my house for like half of that.
That's the kind of people we're kind of talking about.
I was talking about him saying the new generation. You mean flippers?
And the new generation. I mean, we're all. And if you think about it, every generation is a flipper at some point. If you sold a card, for even if you want to buy another card for your PC, because that's what we do. You buy PC cards. We're flippers. We're investors. We're collectors at heart. All four of us, I would say.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people at that show that like, if I have a Patrick Williams that's ridiculous, well, I'm calling Jeremy. And he's going to tell me what he's going to pay me for it, and he knows he's going to end up with it. And there's a bunch of people there that bring me, Falcons cards, like, oh, yeah, I bought this collection. Here's a stack of this and that. Cool. I don't sell that stuff. Everybody knows who people's PCs are. If I get an awesome Miggy or something, I go and talk to AJ and like, hey man, I got this, I got that, but what do you want for it? I'm like, dude, just take it. I mean, everybody knows who everybody collects.
There's a finishing point for every card. Like every point
to somebody that isn't going to be sold again. You're going to give them a deal just so they can have it. And there's plenty of guys like that. And the guys that are buying stuff to sell to repacks or to whatever, they're offering you a fair price based on what they're going to get for it. If you want to sell it, then sell it. If you don't, that's fine. They're not going to be offended if you're like, hey, I want to hold on to this Luka or this Pat Mahomes, but I'm happy selling you the rest of them. They're fine with that. And as a dealer, you get to dictate which ones you want to be more flexible on as opposed to the ones you don't. And that's okay.
I had a really frank conversation with the kid. He came up to me and he was offering me an amount on a card. He was like at 70%. And I'm like, I could literally take this card and sell it to that guy walking around for the repacks for, 85, 90%. They're, I would rather hold on to this card that I like versus selling it. And then he's like, oh yeah, fair enough. Totally get it. And that was it. I think that there's like this weird, almost perception that some of the people who are trying to make deals or like come in at 70% of comps are just like crazy or being disrespectful. That's not been my experience at all.
I think relationship is important because quite honestly, the comp thing, if you're dealing with somebody who's level-headed, that's just a reference point because you have to take into account several other factors. And so, like, I actually meant to buy some cards from Garrett. He was set up, and he was like, "Hey, this is essentially this is my entry point. I'd like to make a little bit money. That's my comp. Yada yada yada. These are where the comps are. Let's work. Let's cook," as Courtney would say. And those people are going to be the people who are successful because it's a very where do you need to be? This is what I'm trying to do. If we can make it happen, great. If not, we'll get you on the next one.
Yep.
Yeah,
And there's a million of those guys.
Yeah. Well, and comps too, like you can look at a comp and be like, this comp is, from preseason. There's not another one available. I know I'm a little I'm over that price, but there's 4 more on eBay that are $1,000 more than what I'm asking. So you literally can't get it right now for less than what I'm selling it for. And I know it's over the last comp, but we can meet somewhere in the middle. And I think that that's fair. And that's a conversation you can have. But the second somebody's like, oh, comps, and you're like, no, I don't want to talk to you ever again because you said the word comp, you're kind of like shooting yourself in the foot.
Yep.
Yeah. Manny, one thing football was hot, dude. Football was absolutely hot. If you had football, you sold quickly.
Yeah. Kids love football. We figured that out, right? Everyone's starting to love football. And I don't think there's how we talked about there's an off season, right? But I think with the product coming out right now during the off season, there's really not that. That's why everyone's still collecting it. That's my theory. Maybe
I
you guys
actually said the same thing to Jeremy. I'm like, because I felt like everyone's buying football, and it is the off season, and I'm like, everybody's buying football now. Like, I the last 3 shows I've been at, that's all anybody wants to buy.
Yep.
So maybe football isn't exactly the same kind of situation as like some of the other sports, because you only get 16 games, so people are waiting 17. Sorry, anticipating.
Yeah.
Be better, Courtney. Step your game up.
It's always football season, Courtney.
Yeah. Oh, Courtney. Well, Jeremy, do you have any last thoughts, Jeremy? I know we're hitting that hour mark.
No, it's an incredible show. Dennis does a hell of a job. I encourage anybody to make the trek out there, see it. Have all the amenities. There's a lot of people who I schooled on, like, hey, go get out of here. There's restaurants everywhere. Come back, refresh, and then just feast from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock. People are just trying to make that last buck. So, no, super proud and humble to be a part of the show, and that's all I have.
Dennis, do you want to plug where people can follow you, get information for the card show?
Avery Shoebox Cards on Facebook, Avery Shoebox on Instagram, Avery Shoebox on TikTok. Pretty much wherever. Same on eBay.
There you go.
You can also follow them at ringdudes.com.
Yeah.
Definitely, for sure. My triumphant MMA return.
Yeah. And Court, where can people follow you?
You can check me out, obviously, Reckless Cards and at Dangerous Games Podcast on Instagram. Our next episode, we have Break and Wax on as a guest, so that'll be fun.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, go follow everyone. And Jeremy, what do you want the people to do?
Smash the like button. Is that what you get the kids to do? We're gonna have 1 million followers in no time.
Yeah.
Just screaming smash.
Dude, you
scared the crap out of me.
I feel like my computer shook.
There's an echo in your laptop from him. And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed your hobby release, and we will talk soon. Bye, everyone.
From Vegas.